We all watch media which are adaptations of other media. Tell me, how many of your favorite shows are adaptations of something else? I presume a lot of them are, a lot of mine are at least. When it comes to adaptations, there's always a first, and there's always one to popularize the idea of those type of adaptations. The first book to get adapted into a movie was Cinderella in 1899. The Mario Bros. Movie adaptation in 1986 was the first movie adaptation of a video game. And lastly, we have today's topic, which even though it wasn't the first, it was an adaptation of a webtoon called Tower of God. And it was a fantastic adaptation made by studio Telecom Animation Films in 2020. And on top of that, it ended up popularizing anime adaptations of webtoons. Let me explain why. Let's start with explaining what Tower of God is about though. Because we have to start somewhere, and that's a pretty good place to start. Tower of God is an anime about a young boy by the name of Bomb, who follows his only friend, a girl by the name of Rachel, into a tower as she wants to climb the tower to see the stars for the first time, and Bomb follows her into the tower as he doesn't want to be alone. Within the tower, Bomb and many others are asked to take part in tests, which are presented to them, and if they pass the test in question, they move further up the tower. However, we learn very quickly that a lot of the people in the tower are more than willing to do anything to reach their goals. This on its own sets up for a nice and mysterious premise as we are introduced to a couple characters which we know little to nothing about early on, but end up learning the goals, ambitions, inspirations, and motivations of over the show's episodes, a lot of the time thanks to great dialogue in combination with fantastic world building. The world within the tower is an interesting one. We get to see all types of biomes throughout the show. This could be anything from vast fields to caverns to oceans, yet most if not all of these areas stand out a lot of the time on their own. On top of this, a lot of the time the area they are in reflects well on the story in itself. If they are in a dark cave, in example, we get to see some truly nasty personality traits or actions committed by people within the show. And when it's brighter in, for example, a field, it tends to be more lighthearted and comic, which really helps in setting the tone for the show. The anime also not only had an absolute banger of an opening by the name of Top, performed by the K-pop group Stray Kids, but also a fantastic ending by the name of Slump, performed by the same group. That is, in my personal opinion, even better than the opening, but hey, to each our own. Along with this show has one of my personal favorite soundtracks in anime, and fantastic soundtrack by Australian composer Kevin Penkin. And you end up with a fantastic show which sets very high expectations and standards for future webtoons. There were some complaints at the pacing being too fast at the time of the show's release, due to cramping 70 plus chapters into a 12 episode anime season, which I do completely get, as it can feel very fast paced at times due to its format. But even then, I did at the time and still do feel as if this was mostly a nitpick, as the show still kept everything important to the show's story, and executed on it very well. With all of this in mind, it's pretty clear why Tower of God's anime adaptation ended up getting as popular as it did, and it only helped that it was considered to be one of the best manhwas on Webtoon, which I can agree with after recently picking it up with the release of season 2. Now, these are not the only reasons for its success. Webtoon in itself had blown up in popularity only a couple years prior to the release of the Tower of God anime. I remember being in high school in 2018 and seeing content creators such as Jeff Thu from Other Spacemen and Joey, also known as the Anime Man, talking about webtoons such as Let's Play, which only helped them grow in popularity. It was pretty clear when Tower of God started reaching the top of the charts on Webtoon that it was genuinely fantastic as well. The fact that Webtoon was at an all-time high at the time, with its popularity skyrocketing in combination with the announcement of the anime adaptation of Tower of God, it really wasn't surprising that a lot of people ended up checking out the anime adaptation. The popularity of Tower of God was incredible, and it felt as if everyone was talking about it. And on top of this, a lot of content creators were making videos on it, such as Grant, also known as Gig UK Arizona, also known as the Anime Zone, and a couple people might know him under the name Garnt or Gigak, but not even people at his wedding got it right. We also saw Moist Critical make a Moist Meter video on Tower of God where he praised the show very highly. Essentially what I'm getting at here is that there was no surprise that Tower of God ended up as successful as it did. It had the popularity from its webtoon, which was booming in popularity at the time. Content creators were talking about it highly on their platforms, and lastly, but most importantly, was clearly a high quality show that received very high reviews. With the popularity that Tower of God's anime adaptation received, you would assume that people would jump at the opportunity of making other webtoon anime adaptations. And you wouldn't be surprised if you heard about popular webtoons receiving adaptations shortly after. Two of the most notable anime adaptations of webtoons the same year are God of High School and Noblesse. However, they sadly would not end up meeting the expectations nor the hype that everyone had for them. Tower of God was such a success that in all honesty, there was an expectation set for the rest of the webtoons to keep up with, which, in my opinion at least, was their downfall. Some people would argue a variety of reasons to why, but my take, at least for God of High School, as I haven't seen Noblesse, is that they were just unfortunate to come after Tower of God. Tower of God had such a high quality that it set an expectation that most anime adaptations would struggle to meet, whether webtoons or not, and it was clear that those expectations hurt the other adaptations due to people expecting too much out of them. And with these two shows falling short due to these high expectations, people would start talking less and less about upcoming webtoon adaptations, which really was a shame as there was so much potential there. After a couple years with a few somewhat successful but no mainstream adaptations, well, at least not to the success of Tower of God or even God of High School, it genuinely seemed like the next popular adaptation might be the second season of Tower of God. But then suddenly an anime for the popular webcomic Solo Leveling was announced, which, whilst it isn't from Webtoon, the company, it is still pretty much the same thing, just from a competitor. So I'm just gonna count it as the same thing for this video, but you know what? I'll be saying Webtoon for it, but I know it's not from Webtoon. If you want to read Solo Leveling, you can find it on Tapitoon, but I'll be using Webtoon as more of like a filler word for general webcomics or like manhwas. With Solo Leveling having grown insanely popular, and being almost everywhere in 2021, its anime release got instantly hyped up, but there was also some worry due to previous webtoon adaptations, although the hype drowned it out heavily. And then, in 2024 we got it. The anime adaptation of Solo Leveling blew up in popularity straight off the bat, and it was incredibly successful. Well, outside of one recap episode, which we don't talk about, you know, we can skip that. With this, it showed a lot of what really was needed from these webtoon adaptations that we got a lot of after Tower of God. What we needed really wasn't many of them, or quantity of them, but rather quality ones. Ones that could go toe-to-toe with Tower of God and other popular anime, and to a lot of people, Solo Leveling was better than Tower of God, which is clear from its 8.3 rating on Mal, aka my anime list, compared to Tower of God's 7.55 rating. There were a lot of people considering this to be more of a one-off success though, as an adaptation comparing it to Tower of God, and set expectations that another one as good might not be released for another couple of years. But let's be honest here, they were wrong. Let me explain why. Now at the start of July, the second season of Tower of God finally started airing, and it started off with a bang. We got to see a well-made 40-minute recap video released on Crunchyroll's YouTube channel for it, and with its 2 episodes so far, has for sure met its hype and is turning out really good. It is already gaining a higher rating than the previous season on Mal, although not an as high one as Solo Leveling, and it is clear that it won't stop anytime soon. With these last 2 amazing webtoon anime adaptations, which we have seen this year, it was very much clear that webtoon are back on the radar for a lot of people, and as ironic as it might be, Tower of God might once again become what sets expectations for the future webtoon anime adaptations, but this time with its second season instead of its first. But we'll have to wait and see what we get coming here next. So I'm actually kind of excited for this, and I'm looking forward to see what they can cook up. With all of this being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, feel free to subscribe for more similar content. I'm hoping on hitting 500 subs by the end of this year, so it would be heavily appreciated. That being said, I wish you all a great rest of your day. Bye.